C2 Wrestling is here with the presentation of the inaugural, newest, biggest wrestling award show in history. It is the Twoeys.
The C2E's coming at you. C2 Wrestling. We've been around now for what? 5, 6 months, building a little bit of following in this wrestling community, just talking shop like we like to do. But now we're going to talk about what we think was the best of the best throughout the year of 2024. We got ready for this, prepared, dressed to the gills. Look at us. Look at us. Who would have thought? C2 Wrestling doing an award show.
Looking dapper. And look, I'll put the disclaimer out there right now. This is the C2 Wrestling Award Show.
Yes.
This is our award show.
Yes, this is what we think. Out of all the categories that we have, if you're not following us on X on Twitter, hit us with a follow. We were posting throughout the week all of our categories that we have tonight. This is all based on our opinion in wrestling, who we think was the best women's wrestler, best men's wrestler, rivalry of the year, match of the year, whatever the categories are. This comes from the minds of C2.
We're going to have fun. It's going to be a new yearly thing that we are going to do. So the first one is always going to be the best one until you do the next one, and your best one is the last one. It's the first one. I am so excited for this because, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how else to tell you this, but this is the only correct awards at the end of the year.
Yeah, this is the only correct awards at the end of the year. Now, I've seen some awards being given out by ESPN, by WWE, by all these places online. Some of them line up, some of them surely don't, But if you want the authenticity, if you want the real answers, if you really want to know what the best of the best is, you got to check out C2 Wrestling's Twoeys Awards.
So we'll get things going. We have 8 categories today. I will list them off right now. We have the Ssss'Change It Moment of the year, the moment that we would change the most this year in WWE. We have the best match. We have the biggest moment, the rivalry of the year, the Bret Hart hater of the year. I need to clarify on this.
It's a good one.
It is not the person who hates Bret Hart the most. It is the person who exemplifies the most Bret Hart characteristics in being a hater. Then we have the best tag team, the best women's wrestler, and we wrap it up with the best men's wrestler. Snowden, before we get to category number 1, was there a certain category in there where you were like, I know my winner?
Yes. That will be, you know what? I'm not going to spoil nothing. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yes or no question, no spoilers. We got plenty of time to get through all of the categories. So let's kick things off with a C2 special, one of our own categories. It's the Ssss'Change It Moment of the year.
Change it.
So we go through, we have our nominees. The 4v4 men's war games. The Crown Jewel concept. Logan Paul's United States title run. Jimmy versus Jey Uso from WrestleMania 40, or that storyline as a whole. And Bayley's title run. Before we announce the winner, we'll break down some of them. To me, there's a few more glaring than others.
For sure.
And I think some need a little bit more explanation. The 4v4 men's war games. This is not on here because the men's war games match was bad by any means.
Not at all.
That's not the case. This is on here because it would have made the most sense to be 4v4.
Yes, we were saying it from the beginning. It should have been Bloodline versus Bloodline, new versus old. We didn't need Bronson. We didn't need Rollins. We didn't need Punk. In the long run, it turned out great. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy with what we got, but it still should have been different. 4v4.
Yes, it's in hindsight. Yes, the Punk stuff will play into a bigger story, but I think in a perfect world, it's something that I would change. But is it the winner?
It's, not the winner. Not the winner, unfortunately. And I think part of it not being the winner is the fact that it turned out better than it could have been when they added Bronson Reed and CM Punk. If they would have added Seth Rollins, maybe it wins, to be honest. I might have won. It really might have. But it ends up working out in the long run. It's still up there. It's definitely still in my top 5 things I would have changed within the year. But I don't quite know if it won.
So the winner for the first ever award of the Twoeys, the Ssss'Change It Moment of the Year is the Crown Jewel concept.
The crown jewel concept. Now, to elaborate on what we mean by the crown jewel concept, crown jewel has been around for a matter of years now. Even when it wasn't really labeled crown jewel, what we're talking about here is just all the Saudi Arabia shows. Twice a year they go overseas and they put on an exhibition. It is definitely a 3 to 4 week period of just filler, get through it. Don't get me wrong, we've had some solid matches in the past out in Saudi, but it's usually nonsense if we're being honest. But overall, what we really mean here with the concept is this new crown jewel championship. We here at C2 Wrestlings, it's plural now, C2
Yeah.
Wrestlings, we are not big fans of the crown jewel championship. I personally did not like them wasting the Gunther Cody match this year round. What match are they going to waste next year in doing it? And that's, I think, the overall point is that this is a yearly crown jewel championship. So does this mean every November we're going to have a 3 to 4 week just get through it period of wrestling leading up to War Games, Survivor Series, whatever it may be? Not quite a fan of that.
Not only that, every year we're just for a month throwing the brand split out the window again and just letting free for all happen because you have champion versus champion. It just is not needed. I get they're trying to make these Saudi shows have something, have a prize. I'm sure
Yeah.
the Saudi government is paying even more for something like this.
Yeah.
Doing King and Queen of the Ring over there, cool. Adding something to it to where the winner gets a title shot, even better.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest Royal Rumble when it happened, to me, it's like that's a gag that it's like, all right, we know this is exhibition. It's going to be, it's wonky, whatever. But in my mind, it's like a house show.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't spoil anything. What happens in the greatest Royal Rumble isn't going to be like, man, they just spoiled the final four of the potential Royal Rumble in January/February. Like, it's not that by any means. Doing this concept, this spoils potential big marquee matches that who knows? Like Gunther Cody was a WrestleMania main event that should have never happened at Crown Jewel in, let's be honest, a worthless match.
Absolutely. A worthless match. Was it an okay match? Yeah, sure, it was, but it was a worthless match. And I think one of my overall problems with the concept is too, and this goes for Liv Nia as well, or whatever the world title feud may be for the women come next season, next Crown Jewel. King of the Ring is one thing. I think that's actually a fine concept for Saudi. But now you have this champion versus champion where someone's got to lose every time. You have Cody this year round, top of the top, Gunther, top of the top. Who do you have win? Who do you have lose? How do you do it? Yeah, maybe one year there'll be a DQ this, somebody will cheat here or there, but it's tough to have a champion lose clean when you're really building said champion. Every year it's going to be different. Maybe the Crown Jewel Championship will fall in line with the transitional champion, and it won't be that big of a deal for so and so to take a loss. Doesn't make me like the concept. I still worry that every year we're going to have to watch so and so lose when they really shouldn't.
Yes, and I liked what they did with Gunther after they at least played it into the story, but it was something where they could have got to that priest Gunther story without having Gunther take a loss to Cody. Not saying that
Absolutely.
losing to Cody is bad by any means.
Yeah.
These are two nominees for Best Men's Wrestler of the Year. It's just not needed, in my opinion. Like the juice is not worth the squeeze. And after it, I don't know if Cody's mentioned it once or if Liv's mentioned it once that they won that prestigious match and are the, top dog, the top of the food chain in the WWE. I don't think it's been mentioned once, which good, that's fine, but it adds to the what the hell is the point of this?
Yeah, it's a totally forgotten, statistic for these guys that, they've won the Crown Jewel Championship. Again, I think King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring is actually a fantastic concept for Saudi. I think, the Saudi shows, if you're going to do two a year, tournaments are maybe the way to go. Not really like champion versus champion, not really fighting for like a title that's actually a title. Imagine if they culminated as corny as it was when they did it originally, but a best in the world tournament every year. They had a couple lead up matches and then they ran down the semifinals and the finals in Saudi in November. That is a true exhibition where it would just be much better, in my opinion. I don't need them fighting over a title that is worthless. They don't care. WWE doesn't care, clearly, or else they'd be carrying the thing around. But they're not. Saudi paid for it. They got it more than once. They're going to get it again and again and again. I'm hopeful that they change the concept, but being how they announced it this year, I don't think they will.
So our other nominees, Logan Paul's US title run and Jimmy versus Jay, I feel like those kind of speak for themselves. I don't think we really need to dive into them, but I would like to touch on Bailey's title run before we get into the
Yes.
next category. That this is not like I would change Bailey winning the title. No, not at all. I liked her winning the Rumble. I liked her winning the title. The story actually was pretty solid.
Yep.
The problem, what I would change, which, made this a strong candidate to win, honestly, is how she was booked after.
Yes. Yeah. Bailey was booked very transitionally as a champion after the fact. And, to a point, it's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I get it. It happens. But the way they kind of booked Bailey up, the whole damage control run, taking the turn, facing Io, winning the belt at WrestleMania, it didn't really seem like the champion you have lose the belt. What was it, a month and a half later? Real quick, clean, no real feud. What's memorable from that Bailey title run besides the actual win at 40? Not much.
No, she was barely on TV. I think she maybe defended against Naomi on a SmackDown. It wasn't even on the
Mm-hmm.
pay-per-view.
I believe so. Yeah.
Like, it was something where you almost look back and you're like, maybe they looked at the end goal as her winning, and then they were like, oh, well, we kind of forgot what to do after that. Like, we didn't really have any
Yeah.
plans now that she's champion. It's really what it felt like. She
Yeah.
won the title, and it was like, oh, we don't really have anything for you. It's like, you just made her champion.
Yeah. And we've said here in the past, I'm a big fan of people having, two-time, three-time, four-times champ under their belt. So it is nice that she got a title run. Don't get me wrong. In hindsight, you can look back and say Bailey was the women's champion another time, but it just could have been more. Putting the belt on Nia, I don't think was a bad decision. I think it's been working out with her, but I just think we could have got more out of this freshly faced Bailey title run.
Yeah, there definitely could have been more, but sad that it went that way.
Sad, but
Still plenty of potential for Bailey in the future with
yeah,
future stories. Her title run did not have any matches that land in our next category.
they did not. I was just about to say, speaking of more, we got more categories. Best match coming up next. Five categories here, or five contenders
Nominees.
here, I should say. Nominees, yeah. We got CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, Hell in a Cell. Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman Reigns, Night 1 WrestleMania. Obafemi versus Dijak versus Josh Briggs, NXT Stand and Deliver. Gunther versus Sami Zayn, also at WrestleMania 40. And then we have finally Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles in France at Backlash. Now, similar to the last category, I think there's a couple here that I also want to talk about a little bit. One that I want to bring up in particularly, right in the middle of that nominee list, was a triple threat. Obafemi versus Josh Briggs versus Dijak. We were there live, in person. And I got to be honest, if it wasn't for one other match, this is match of the year. This is the most honorary mention to me. I really think from a standpoint of wrestling, maybe there is no top dog in this match. Obafemi's on the rise. He's still a little bit green. Dijak isn't with WWE anymore. Josh Briggs is still in NXT. Maybe this doesn't have the star power that some of these other matches have. That was an incredible match to see in person. That really set the tone for WrestleMania weekend. I think that is one of the best matches in NXT history.
That match not only was great, it's also great on the rewatch.
Great on the rewatch. Yeah.
You know, a lot
Fantastic
of a lot
rewatch.
of times when you're at a show, you kind of get bought into the moment and you rewatch something and you're like, I remember the crowd being louder, or man, I remember that looking better in person. I remember it sounding better, whatever. That was a match when I rewatched it. The moment of Obafemi's hand coming down, like I was like, wow, this looked even better on TV with the camera angle that they had.
Mm-hmm.
It made you could argue it was even better watching it on TV, even
Mm-hmm.
though it was fantastic in person. Very rare do you get a match that you're like, that was a great match. You rewatch it and it is even better than you remember when it was live.
For sure. Those are three guys that deserve all the credit for putting on a killer match on, don't get me wrong, the highest tier of NXT pay-per-views, but they just had no business going out there and putting on a clinic like they did. But as I said, there's one match that really tops the category here. If it wasn't for the Hell in a Cell between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, we might have a different match of the year. Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, Hell in a Cell, put on maybe one of the best Hell in a Cells of all time. That is C2 Wrestling's match of the year. Congratulations on the Twoeys, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre.
I I was lucky enough that four of these five matches I was in person for.
Yeah.
You were in person for three of the 5.
Mm-hmm.
The one that was the difference was the match of the year, Punk versus Drew in Hell in a Cell. That was, you know, when they got rid of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view and
Thank
wanted to
God.
save the actual match for
Blood
something that
feuds.
deserved it and having it at a Bad Blood, that is a match where you go in to the story of the two thinking that could be the potential end. And you almost start to worry a little bit. Like you set your expectations so high, so far in advance, and they start having some solid matches. Like the strap match was a really good match. But when you get to the Hell in a Cell, you're like, I just know, I just feel it. This match is going to deliver. I already have my
Yep.
standards set high,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it's still going to exceed them. And it did just that. From storytelling to the actual match itself to the mistakenly slicing Drew's head open and him having to get staples, which again, a moment that goes down in history where both of them are
Mm-hmm.
super bloody. It looks even better. The images of it, the imagery added to it from Punk actually being busted open by himself and Drew accidentally being busted open.
Mm-hmm.
This to me is prime example of, I hate to say this, if you're gonna rate matches,
Yep.
and it
Use
should
cage
only
match.
go up, yeah, it should only go up to 5 stars or 10, or rating it out of 10, whatever you're
Yeah.
using it. It shouldn't exceed that number.
Yeah.
This is the perfect match. If you're on a 5-star scale,
Mm-hmm.
it's a 5 out of 5. If you're doing out of 10, it's a 10 out of 10. This top to bottom is the perfect match.
It 1000% is. It really is the perfect match. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, whatever you want to rank it. And it's more than just the actual wrestling in the match. There's a few months of storytelling that adds in, and it plays out in the match itself. When they pull out, I believe Punk pulls out the thumbtacks, but they turn out to be the beads, the bracelet beads. And I understand that bracelet storyline being a little bit corny to some people, but it worked. It worked out, and this was a very impromptu feud to begin with. If Punk never gets hurt in the Rumble, this never happens, probably. It's crazy just the series of events that can come from something that was unfortunate at the time, ends up turning into CM Punk's maybe best match in WWE. And he hadn't had a few in the last 10 years. It's crazy to see. The Crimson Mask, Drew McIntyre getting busted open by the toolbox, CM Punk bleeding everywhere. There's a couple shots of that match where they're just bloody in the ring, wrestling it out, fighting all over, that are historic to wrestling. They will be played back and shown over years. I think the overall story that went into it is part of what gives it the edge too. We at C2 Wrestling here, we know it's pro wrestling, but it's not really all about the wrestling. There's more involved than just what goes down in the ring, the physicality of it. Could there be a 5-star match that's just a great wrestling match? Sure. But it really, really adds to the story when you have a story.
Absolutely. And to be fair, the other nominees all
Mm-hmm.
had solid stories.
Absolutely.
The Rhodes style story, maybe not as strong, but still had a
Mm-hmm.
logical story and had some fun moments. And that was a great match with a great crowd.
Fantastic crowd.
The Gunther Sammy match, I mean, that was an incredibly easy story to follow.
Yep.
On top of it being a great story, we talked already about the triple threat from NXT, and then the tag team of Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman Reigns. Another great story.
The Rock's
That
return.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. A great story that leads to a great match. It's not just, you know, drop toe holds. Like
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
be,
yeah,
you gotta get invested.
yeah.
All of those had me invested. And there's some other matches for sure throughout the year that had me invested, but for a whole kit and caboodle,
Mm-hmm.
I think the true winner is the Punk Drew Hell in a Cell.
I think the Punk Drew Hell in a Cell, the moment it happened, won. It would have been very hard to have a match from Bad Blood until now that would have topped that Hell in a Cell. Up until then, I really think that triple threat at Stand and Deliver would have taken the cake, but there is no way anything tops that Hell in a Cell match this year.
Completely agree. That was a great moment, but we got to talk about the biggest moments.
There's a few of them this year.
There's a few of them. There's some that, we think may be better than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So, bringing us to our next category on the C2 Wrestling Twoeys, we have the biggest moments of the year. We have Cody Rhodes finishes his story at WrestleMania 40. We have The Rock returns at Bad Blood, gives a countdown, says no words. We have CM Punk's first singles match in 10 plus years. Dom and Liv sharing a kiss after Dom turns heel, or turns even more heel, I should say.
Yeah.
And as we previously mentioned, the crowd in France, in Paris, France, for Backlash, incredibly. Look, we've been basically chopping one off as
Mm-hmm.
we start talking about the one I'll chop off that's, not going to be our winner, but deserves to be talked about is that crowd in France.
Absolutely. That is, maybe we're a little biased. We were at WrestleMania 40. WrestleMania 40 is maybe the best crowd I've ever been in person for. But that France crowd, unbelievable. That's really got to be one of the best crowds in history of wrestling, right alongside Puerto Rico and Backlash. Backlash becoming a staple event that they do in other countries, other places around the globe, I think is fantastic. Some rumors circling around that it's in Mexico City this year. Would like to see that. We've been saying that for years. They should be doing a Mexico City show. I think that'd be fantastic. But that France crowd, man, that chant, AJ Styles in the ring, he's got his arms out, the shake on the camera, just moving and won't stop. That is a viral moment. I had friends that don't watch wrestling texting me being like, dude, that was nuts. Cody Rhodes is so good. All this crazy stuff. That's one of those moments that deserves to be in this category because it got people watching. You need a moment to get people to tune in, and that was one of them.
The day before when they had SmackDown, it didn't air live here.
Mm-hmm.
They taped it obviously for prime time during Paris. I remember seeing the clips before SmackDown aired here from their promo where they're in the ring
Mm-hmm.
and the crowd is going insane and they're doing the Styles chant. And I am like, oh man, like this is such an atmosphere. This is just the SmackDown. This is just the
Yep.
promo. This isn't even the actual match. There's no way they can top this, right? Oh boy, did they.
Oh boy, did they. I really compare it like when I think of the two craziest crowds, and again, we've been to some insane live shows, but that Puerto Rico backlash, Bad Bunny's entrance, and then that Styles entrance in France really hold like an important level in wrestling history. In hindsight, looking back at those two, especially this France one, just being kind of off the cuff. The Puerto Rico one I feel like was booked out for a while. France was kind of like, I don't want to say last minute, but they didn't have like the maybe most stellar card going into that backlash too. they still made the best of it. That's a moment that will truly be rewatched for the rest of the time.
I'm not 100% sure, but with the road to WrestleMania, them having a ton of European shows
Mm-hmm.
and them, they're going to be live on Netflix instead of tape delay. We're going to get some awesome crowds. I hope one of those shows is in Paris. I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe one's in Italy, and they raved about how great the crowd was in Italy. So I'm very excited about that. But we have to get to the winner. And let's be fair. I think this is one of the more obvious ones.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the categories where you pick the winner first, and then you find the four other moments that were just as big. And there was no bigger moment this year than when The Rock returned to bat. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Cody Rhodes finishing his story obviously is our winner. No bigger moment. I mean, you're talking, this isn't a 1 year story. This isn't a
No.
2 year story. This isn't a 3 year story from when he returned. This is a lifelong story.
Yep.
And for us, not to try to compare ourselves to other wrestling fans, but our age kind of locks pretty well with Cody's career because when Cody made his debut, we are like, early about to become
Teens. Yeah.
teenagers, like we're, maybe 11, 12, and then, teenagers.
Yeah.
This is a guy, I mean, Cena, look, we grew up on Cena, but when Cena debuts, we're still 6 or 7. We're still a little bit younger.
Yeah.
Cody, his debut, it's like when you're starting to become very knowledgeable in the
Mm-hmm.
early teens and you get it. You get it. And you're looking up the nodq.coms, you're looking up, the results, whatever, the rumors. So it's you connect very easily to it because this is a guy that we vividly remember kind of correlating our puberty, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
to when he debuted, to his multitude of characters, to him leaving, to him coming back, to him winning the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship in the main event of the biggest WrestleMania of all time. A moment that this is the biggest moments of 2024, but this is one of the biggest moments in wrestling history.
Yeah, absolutely. It really might be the biggest moment in wrestling history, and he didn't just win the title from somebody that held the belt for a month. He
Yeah.
won it
Yeah.
from the greatest champion in the history of wrestling in Roman Reigns, the most illustrious title run we will probably ever see, our generations. It is not like it was in the 70s, 80s, all that, where these people had 15-year reigns. I don't know, however long Bruno Sammartino held the belt. Roman Reigns holding the belt for as long as he did will never be topped, in my opinion. If anyone's ever going to get close to that, we're going to be kicking 50, to be honest. It's going to be about 20 years before we see that. So there's a level of importance on who you have win that belt from Roman. Who are you putting over? Who's the biggest thing they got going right now in wrestling? And for a long while, it's been Cody Rhodes, man. It's not just his win, too. It's the moment itself. It's him winning with the John Cena coming out, with Jey Uso's help, with The Undertaker appearing. It was such a Avengers Endgame-esque culmination of everything we've been wanting and waiting for. The whole storyline of WrestleMania, not at WrestleMania, turning into it actually happening. Bloodline rules, the tag match the night prior. I truly mean it. That could have been the end of my life. I would have been happy that I could have just left that WrestleMania. That was like the end of wrestling to me. It really
Yeah.
was such a great moment.
We still talk about it. I mean, we are what it's like 8 months ago, roughly,
Roughly.
that like that is probably the best weekend of my life. And
Yep.
I'm not even joking. I'm not messing around. Look, I'm not married. I don't have kids.
Yeah.
So, I don't have to pretend like those moments are bigger. That weekend, yes, the Raw after was fun as well. And the entire weekend as a whole was great, but the entire weekend does not get the admiration that I give it if Cody Rhodes does not walk out as WWE champion.
If Roman had retained the championship that night, it would have been hard getting home. It would have been a rough Raw the next day. Cody Rhodes winning that belt was the only answer. Anyone that said us otherwise, anyone that goes back to WrestleMania 39. It says Cody should have won. That was the wrong move. Psh, go back and watch 40 and tell me what was the wrong move, what was the right move. That year of build up from 39 to 40, on top of the year of build up the year prior, I don't know if we'll ever get anything better. I really don't.
And this big moment was really propelled the night before from the tag match, one of our best matches of the year.
Yep.
Cody getting pinned in the middle of the ring. I remember us walking out and we were like, man, my feelings about tomorrow have just skyrocketed. Cody just ate this pin tonight from The Rock. It all makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Ooh.
this is a, you know, it's an easy story to follow. It's like there's no way they could mess this up, right? Right?
You
Right?
hope not. You hope not. And I'll tell you, they have messed up some things in the past. So you can never put it past them, but it's been a great little run under Cody Rhodes. The bigger overall theme, though, is not just the match, Cody Rhodes moment, but a lot that goes into that is the rivalry of Cody Rhodes and not just Roman Reigns, but Cody Rhodes and the bloodline. That is one of our nominees in our next category, rivalry of the year. Cody Rhodes versus the bloodline, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley, the OG bloodline versus the new bloodline, and then we have Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens, all on the list for rivalry of the year. You know, we just touched a bit on Cody Rhodes and the bloodline and Roman Reigns, and what a stellar feud rivalry that has all been. But it's more than a year. It's more than a year. And I'll tell you what, they didn't really do a whole lot throughout the entire year up until the small stint of Mania and then the tag match at SummerSlam, things like that. When we're talking rivalry of the year, I don't know if that's our winner.
If it was the best rivalry in the last 2 years, the best rivalry in the last 5 years,
Yep.
that's probably in there. You know,
Yeah.
that's
It,
if you're
it might be
voting,
the best rivalry of all time.
yeah, if you're voting, it's probably your top point getter. But when you're just going off 2024, I mean, you said it best. There's the little bit, you know, at the start of the year. Then he has a little bit with Rollins, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Then he wins the title and Roman disappears for a little bit. And then he kind of jumps into the solo feud and then he's teaming with Roman and teaming with parts of the bloodline. And, you know, even the tail end of 2023, he's teaming with Jey Uso. So it's not as strong as it was, say, going into Mania 39, where it was
Mm-hmm.
Cody, Owens, and Zayn taking on the bloodline. And like they didn't have the numbers at the time they thought they did. That, you know, that year, I think that's a hook, line, and sinker for 2023. 2024, you could argue, and I think it's probably a fair argument that Cody Rhodes' best rivalry is the one with Kevin Owens.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a fair argument. I think his best rivalry of the year is the one with Kevin Owens. Now, it's not rivalry of the year either, though. And part of that reasoning is it's fantastic, but it's still ongoing. It's not even done yet. They're still early on in that feud, in that rivalry. We've only had one get together between those two guys. Two matches, actually.
Two.
Sorry,
Yeah.
two matches between those two guys. And they're a little spread out. It's a long term story. It hasn't culminated yet. So I need to see where it goes to where I can really place it. And it really only starts to take place at the very later end of the year. You know, there's a little bit of a stint between them, you know, in the middle of the year, but it didn't really start coming into place until, you know, about a month and a half, 2 months ago or so. And we're still getting great content. It's been the best version of Kevin Owens probably since his NXT run, in my opinion. It's been one of the best versions of Cody, honestly. It's the best thing we've had Cody do in this entire year, but it's not quite rivalry of the year.
Completely agree.
Rivalry of the year, you know, when we're talking about a year span rivalry, it does lead me to bring up Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley because they really have feuded pretty much January to December, almost. You know, like that is a yearly rivalry. Also, not our winner for the fact that a little too long. Should have ended. Rivalry of the year knows when to end. It ends at a great pace. It's a good story, and it has been good. Liv and Rhea has been a great story, but it's a little too ongoing. That only leaves so many categories left, so many nominees. The obvious winner, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. It culminated in our match of the year, the Hell in a Cell. That whole feud, again, only ever became a feud based off an injury to CM Punk. Should have never happened. For them to do that, it's like turning water into wine. You took such a small nothing. It's just an injury. It didn't even have to be a story. You know how many times guys have gotten injured in the ring and they just come back and it's never a feud, it's never a rivalry. They didn't have to go that route, but they pivoted a little bit. They went that route, and it was the best thing we got all year.
Here's my biggest thing with it. This rivalry, not only is it deserving of rivalry of the year, for the large portion of the first 6 months of this rivalry, it was done with CM Punk not even being cleared to wrestle.
Yep. Yep.
He gets injured in the Rumble, and they kept this rivalry so interesting and had you so captivated, and you knew they couldn't wrestle for multiple months. They
Yep.
could not face off for multiple months. It was strictly tweeting, promos, interferences. We didn't get that first match until SummerSlam.
Yeah. And the thing is, that first match is CM Punk's first match back. Yeah, he had the Rumble, but we all know that's a gimmick match. That is not really his
And the
first
house show
real.
versus Dom doesn't
Yes,
count.
it's not aired, things like that. The Rumble doesn't really count. That first CM Punk match back being as great as it was, the strap match being as great as it was, and then culminating in one of the best matches ever, not only match of the year, not only one of the best Hell in a Cells ever. It's really one of the best matches in WWE history. It's fantastic stuff. On the other hand, too, we mentioned CM Punk a lot. It brought out the best version of Drew McIntyre. This whole feud put Drew on another level. Drew was getting to that point of that face run where it was a disaster. Turn him heel or get him off TV bad. He really had a stench to him. I did not want him around as a face anymore. It was a very, very slow turn for Drew. In the long run, it worked out better than I could have ever imagined.
And this is still going on too. And it is still
Mm-hmm.
interesting me with the directions they're going with it because they've used logic throughout the story, logic before the story, logic after the story. One part I forgot to mention when we gave this rivalry the honor of match of the year, what they did after the match, it also helps for the story itself. The Hell in a Cell being so brutal that both of them immediately were off TV.
Yeah.
And, it helps that the roster is so deep that it's not backbreaking that two of your biggest stars aren't on each week. But they
Mm-hmm.
sold the injuries. They sold the weight of that story, of that rivalry, of that match, that they both had to be off TV for a little bit. Punk, his return, a little bit more expected, but still a bit of a surprise on how they did it. Drew's return, pretty much out of left field.
Yep.
We didn't really expect it. Granted, did Bronson Reed getting injured kind of propel that to become quicker? Possibly, but still, wasn't expecting it. Their rivalry is nowhere near done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to be facing again at anytime soon. But this rivalry of the year has tied in for every aspect of what makes a good rivalry. The matches, the story, not insulting your intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
the big moments, the big payoffs, the roller coaster of the peaks and valleys. We've talked about it plenty. We didn't even mention when they're in Chicago and Drew
Yeah.
Drew carries out Punk, who's a
Mm-hmm.
bloody mess, and just drops him on the ramp. The original start of it with the bracelet breaking, taking something so simple and so little and making people care about it. Not very many feuds in just this year of all time could take such simple things, little things, and make you care so much.
Absolutely. It really was the height of the year outside of WrestleMania 40 to me. Just like we had said earlier, the Hell in a Cell, the match of the year, that's 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10 stars, whatever ranking you want to get it, give it. It's the same with this rivalry. The whole rivalry was 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. There's nothing to complain about. There's no, oh, I would go back and I would so change this or I'd so change that. This rivalry is not in the so change it moment of the year because there's nothing to change. It was top to bottom as good as it gets.
Speaking of as good as it gets, this next category is as good as it gets.
It in
This
fact
is a
is.
Twoeys special.
Yep.
You're not seeing this on the Slammies. You're not
No, no,
seeing this on ESPN's NWA
no, no,
Awards.
no, no.
You're only getting this right here at C2 Wrestling. That is the Bret Hart Hater of the Year.
Yes. Now, again, to emphasize, this category embodies the characteristics of Bret Hart, who is a major hater, big
Yeah.
time hater, hates everything, just doesn't like it, hates it all. So, who is in WWE the year 2024? Who's the biggest hater of the year?
So your nominees are honestly five big haters for all different kind of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
First up, you have Ludwig Kaiser.
Ludwig Kaiser.
Then we have Drew McIntyre, who we just explained how much of a hater he is. Then we have Dominic Mysterio,
Mm-hmm.
Ethan Page from NXT, who the guy's nickname is Ego.
It's a
That's
good one.
it doesn't get much more hater than that. And our final nominee is Chelsea Green, who, as much as we love, boy, is she a hater.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, 100%. She is definitely leading the pack out of the women in terms of hater of the year. You know, maybe there's a reason Liv Morgan's up there as a hater, but I don't think any of the women even come close to Chelsea Green for hater of the year.
Yeah, Liv Morgan maybe has like the biggest hater moment.
Sure.
You
Yep.
know, the kiss with Dom. That's quite a hater moment, a real backstabbing moment. But Chelsea Green throughout the year was a just flat out hater. Whether it's her boss on Monday Night Raw, her boss on Friday Night SmackDown, her opponent each week, the fans. Chelsea Green was a massive hater, but
But
she wasn't the biggest hater.
not the biggest hater. You know, a couple other names on this list. Dominic Mysterio. Now, that's a big time hater right there. That's, left Rhea Ripley to be with Liv Morgan, her arch nemesis, kissed Liv in front of Rhea, helped Liv win the title. Man, that's a full blown hater. Dom's part in the story has been a little lesser this year than I would say it was last year. Now, last year, Dom didn't turn on Rhea. I get that. But if this was the 2023 C2E's, Dom Mysterio is the hater of the year. As for 2024, I don't know if he is.
History's being kind to Dom when it comes to his hating. You know, a lot of moments with Rey Mysterio, you're like, you know what, maybe Dom is right.
Yeah.
Maybe Dom, is onto something. And maybe you could even argue some moments with Rhea Ripley. You're like,
Yep.
you know what? Maybe Dom is justified in his actions. I'm not saying what he has done in the past is correct. I'm saying maybe you can relate to him a little bit more. We've seen people start to cheer him.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's tough to be the biggest hater of the year and get cheers.
It is. You know, I do got to give Dom a lot of credit for all the hating he does, not even in the ring, not even in a promo. He'll be in an interview hating on his dad, hating on Rey Mysterio, and it is great stuff. But again, it's not our winner this year. It is not the Bret Hart hater of the year. A couple other names I do want to mention. Ethan Page, as you said, his nickname, it's ego, all ego. That is a guy that has not been around in WWE the full year, but that's a big time hater. You know, he has been causing hell down there to Trick Williams, Javon Evans, a lot of those guys. Big time hater, especially with the recent attack on Javon Evans. I think Ego deserves all the credit in the world. I think he's one of the best heels they got going right now. But is he hater of the year?
If you're going to go off a weighted scale, you could make an argument because he, even being in the nominees, even though he is the only one of this list that has way less time to be a hater in WWE, you can make the argument. But when it comes to the biggest hater, it's not just someone who in a match he seems to be a hater, in a promo seems to be a hater. This is someone who they're going on Twitter constantly talking trash. They are going and trolling at a famous bakery that
Yeah.
someone they don't like may
Yeah.
love. They are taking pictures with the enemy of their enemy and posting it online to troll said person. And there has been no bigger hater, no better deserving from Mr. Grumpy himself, Bret Hart. The hater of the year is Drew McIntyre.
It absolutely is. And, I don't know if everyone's going to agree with us on that one. I can see a reasoning for some other people, but Drew McIntyre, to me, to you, that's the hater of the year. And we talked a lot already about the rivalry with Punk, about the Hell in a Cell, the strap match, all that. That is a big, big, big part of Drew McIntyre being hater of the year. As you said, all over Twitter, going to the bakeries, this and that. He was not there just to beat CM Punk. He didn't care for the win. It wasn't for a title. It was to hurt CM Punk. That's what a hater does. A hater doesn't care about the win. A hater is there to torment you, make your life worse, make your life harder, beat you down until there's nothing left. And that was Drew McIntyre's goal in that entire feud.
Not only that, I think of the meme I have saved on my phone when Punk is out there injured,
Mm-hmm.
announcing he is gone, and Drew, being the absolute hater that he is, looks him dead in the eyes and says, I prayed for this and it happened.
Yep.
That is an absolute hater.
Mm-hmm.
Rooting
Absolutely.
for the injury of someone you do not like, and hell being the reason it happened, and saying you prayed for it and it came true. Honestly, it might have been from that moment. He had bigger moments after that
Yeah.
that really sealed the deal, but that moment on, it's tough to argue that there was someone bigger and better of a hater.
100%. And you got to emphasize what a hater is. A hater in the real world, real life, wants to put you down, wants to see you down. And that's exactly, again, what Drew wanted out of Punk. I prayed for it, prayed for your injury, and you got injured. They had no business doing that. Drew McIntyre and Punk really didn't have any sort of connection going into that Rumble. So Drew just hating on CM Punk, wanting to get hurt. That is deserving of the Bret Hart Hater of the Year. Congratulations on your third Twoey, Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
his third too.
yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to, a few, we're gonna, yeah, the biggest
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah.
We're gonna have to, in a few years,
Tally him
go
up.
back and tally him up. Right now,
Drew
Drew
McIntyre leading the pack.
sitting pretty with three Tuohys.
Three Twoeys, man. If that doesn't hurt my brain to say, that is fantastic, though. Great for Drew McIntyre. But we got a couple more categories to get through. We are starting to get into the best of the best. We're going to start with the best tag team in WWE throughout the year 2024. Great year for tag team wrestling. Pretty much started the year with the separation of the tag belts, a WrestleMania 40 ladder match, new tag belts getting introduced, separated the rosters a little bit. What a year for tag team wrestling. On this list, though, we have our boys. We're the only ones cheering for them at WrestleMania 40. Austin Theory, Grayson Waller. We got the Judgment Day as a whole. Faction, we're counting them as a tag team. DIY, we got Firaxium, Nathan Frazier, and Axiom. And then we got the tag team champions, kind of, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Now, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, women's tag team wrestling, we can get rid of it, if I'm being honest with you. Listen, maybe there's a world where it gets better at some point in time, but I don't think they have had the people to counter them. They haven't had the feuds, the rivalries, the stories to really give them the win of tag team of the year. If we're going women's tag team of the year, yeah, sure. But name me another women's tag team that would even be in the nominees, is my point.
Look,
So I think
they won two. They won two this year.
yes, yes, yeah. I think we can take Jade and Bianca off the list, but there's a couple other teams on this list that do deserve a little bit of talking about. Waller and Theory, I just said, they're our boys. They don't get the credit they deserve, man. I just want to give them a little bit of a shout out, put on record that we have been Austin Theory fans from day one, Grayson Waller fans from day one. There's a long stint of Austin Theory getting some unnecessary hate when he did not deserve it. And I think this was a show out year for him. I think he really proved that he has it this year. He has the ability, the skill in the ring, on the mic to do it all. Grayson Waller, that's an absolute star. He's so good on the mic. Seeing them win the tag titles in person, love that.
I mean, these are two guys that when The Rock returns, you're giving him a moment on SmackDown. When Cena returns, you're giving them the rub from Grayson
Yep.
Waller. Like these are the guys that can carry those legend segments. And then at the same time, you throw Grayson Waller in a triple threat with Kevin Owens and Andrade, and he can ball out. You
Absolutely.
throw Austin Theory in any match, he can ball out. You can have him in a tag match, they'll ball out. They are not only did they look great with those SmackDown tag titles, they were like the perfect team to be the first ones to hold those new SmackDown tag titles. I know people, history won't look as kind on the Miz and R-Truth, but that tag ladder match pretty much had the two correct winners when it comes
Yeah.
to like logically where they were at story wise and
Yep.
splitting the titles, making sure they were on separate brands. Waller in theory, yes, they haven't ended the year as hot as maybe they started or towards the middle, but they deserve the love.
They absolutely deserve the love. And, there's a couple other teams on here that deserve the love. But most importantly, I think the team that deserves the love, our winner for best tag team of the year, the workhorses of tag teams this year, Nathan Frazier and Axiom, NXT tag team champions, Fraxium. What a tag team, man. They really have been the workhorse tag team of the year, putting on the most stellar tag team matches in the company this year. And I'll tell you what, NXT is great. It's been some of the best wrestling product in recent time. It doesn't get the views that the main roster product is getting. Yes, Raw and SmackDown, but you are missing out by not watching NXT, especially by not watching Nathan Frazier and Axiom.
I'm on record saying how I hate for when there's just two random people kind of thrown together.
Yep.
And it feels like a lot of those times they have very short runs as a tag team. WWE's gotten a lot better with that. If
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be a tag team, they'll stick you together for quite some time. They'll
Try to make it
have
work.
exactly. Or you'll come in as a tag team. Then there's people where they get teamed up and it just makes sense that you kind of forget that not that long ago they weren't a tag team.
Yeah.
And that's two of the teams that got nominated, Waller in Theory and Frazier and Axiom. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you kind of forget that they weren't a tag team. I know Jade and Bianca as well, but we're focusing on the I say the winner and probably runner up.
Yeah.
You kind of forget that these were all single stars. They just make
Mm-hmm.
so much sense and work so well with their teammate that you forget about their singles career and their path as singles champions for some of them. But this is the tag team of the year.
It's not even close, in my opinion, for tag team of the year. And there's some great tag teams, some fantastic tag teams. Don't get me wrong, but it's not even close. For Axiom, and again, it's more than just the in ring ability. Two of the best guys they have right now, and they're still only in NXT. Nathan Frazier, he's been hailed as the next Seth Rollins. Axiom, I got to give that guy a lot of credit because it's hard to get over in a mask. I'm not going to lie. There's only been so many masked superstars that can really, really get over with the crowd. Rey Mysterio, obviously the most prominent. Axiom, man, when they transitioned him from A Kid to Axiom and put him down in NXT, great in ring talent. I thought he would fluster. I didn't think it was really going to stick. Pairing him with Nathan Frazier, it just works. It's a similar tag team to Waller in Theory, where, yeah, like I'm not usually big on them just pairing two random people together, but there's similarities between some people that when you pair them together, it makes more sense. You know, to reference right now, the Final Testament has been teaming with The Miz. On paper, The Miz and Karrion Kross are like almost polar opposites. Like that is a
It's oil and water.
universe mode tag team. Doesn't make any sense. Nathan Frazier and Axiom makes more sense. But Miz and Karrion Kross, they're making that work. They're going to make Frazier and Axiom work. I'm going to say it again. If you have been watching NXT, you got to be watching NXT for the best tag team wrestling in the business right now.
I'm not going to go out there and say this is going to be included in my bold predictions. That
Mm-hmm.
probably drops the day before this. So if you're watching this, hopefully you've watched that.
If you
But
haven't, go watch it.
yeah, there's a good chance we're sitting at the end of 2025 and Frazier and Axiom's names are still on this list because they've been called up to the main roster and they've absolutely balled out and they have a legit shot at going back to back. I know
Yep.
I don't want to call my shot, but That's a legit possibility of them to, they teased the breakup a while ago, and they love to say, Fraxium is fine,
Yeah,
everything is
yeah,
fine. It feels like there's just so much juice left to squeeze that
absolutely.
if they are not a successful tag team throughout all of 2025, it's a mistake in my book.
It's absolutely a mistake. And, Fraxium really does have maybe more opportunity than anything we've listed so far to go back to back and win next year's C2E award for best tag team. You know, it's an interesting one where usually I would say Nathan Frazier, especially, is a guy that has a lot of potential, could even be an NXT champion one day. But when you have a tag team that's meshing as well as they are, working so well, how do you not call them up as a tag team? To break them up and then call them up as individuals doesn't really do it for me with how well they're working. I said in a recent video of ours, I do kind of forget which video it is, if you recall, but Nathan Frazier and Axiom, with this whole workhorse type storyline they got going on, 2 matches a night, Nathan Frazier's challenging for other titles and everything like this. That's a tag team that you can call up as the NXT tag team champions. They can find themselves in a tournament, a battle royale, something to get a shot for the SmackDown tag titles, let's say. Maybe they beat DIY and they're holding both the NXT tag titles and the SmackDown tag titles. Who knows the route they go with Fraxium, but there's a lot of opportunity there, and I'm looking forward to it. Two of the best guys they got going.
That was in our NXT call up video. If you haven't
That's it.
seen it, please go check it out. The
That's a good one.
five people that are, deserving of a call up towards the end of this transfer window.
I'll tell you what, when you check it out, give it a like too.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Give it a
Why
like.
not? Yeah.
There was a lot to like about the progression of the women's roster this year
Absolutely.
because
Big year for the women.
we have a final five that I'm looking at and I'm like, wow, this person didn't make it. This person didn't make it. This is a tough list to go final five on the best women's wrestler of the year. I think there's some legit honorable mentions compared to
Mm-hmm.
our final five.
Yeah, absolutely. This is maybe the category that the list could have expanded a bit more. When you're talking best match of the year, you usually can narrow it down to like a 3 to 5 best matches. When you're talking best wrestlers of the year, there's usually some people that can make the list, but they don't because there's only so many names to put on it. The five we have, though, I think are the top five in whichever order you want to put them. Why don't you let the fans know who they are?
Our top five all have been champions this year, I should add. We have Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, Bailey, and Nia Jax. Now, I have said this to you plenty, Snowden, off air, on C2. Nia Jax,
Yep.
is she the greatest wrestler of all time? No. But if you can't sit there and see the clear progression, and I'm talking very large progression from when she first was in WWE
Mm-hmm.
to now, not just in ring, her promos, her character work, her matches, all of it so clearly improved that if we had a most improved category, there's a legit shot I would give Nia the winner.
Yeah, I mean, most improved between both men and women. Yeah, Nia might take that cake, to be honest. Nia, that first run from Nia, and then she leaves. Back then, good riddance, to be honest with you. It was, I was not a Nia Jax fan. And, as you said, is she the best wrestler in the world? No. But Nia Jax has definitely, definitely, definitely improved from the version that she once was. And, getting a championship run, still the champion, pairing up with Tiffany Stratton, having a great little, tag team, little bit of a feud going on with her kind of type thing. It's been great. Everything Nia Jax this entire year, there's nothing to complain about. Again, I don't think she's the women's wrestler of the year, but she's in the category. She very well is in the top 3, even, let alone top 5. Just mentioned Tiffany Stratton, that being one of the honorable mentions, I will say, in maybe just not breaking that list. Maybe number 6, to be honest, Tiffany Stratton. But Nia Jax is kind of leading that little thing they got going on between them two being the women's champion. Tiffany is over the moon, but I don't know if it works as well without Nia, in all honesty.
Completely agree. I don't think it works as well at all, especially because Nia plays so well into being hateable.
Yes.
And they obviously are working towards Tiffany becoming a face. And
Hmm.
although people pretty naturally were cheering for Tiffany before, this really helps force the hand of the crowd, where you have Naya just flat out being mean, like flat out
Hmm.
just being a
Yeah, yeah,
bully, being what she
yeah.
should be. During the Vince days, we had the storyline of Naya being the one that was bullied, and it's like, no, this is not the character that fans are going to get behind. This is the powerhouse of the division. This is the big bad bully. This is the
Mhm.
one that others fear, and she pushes people around. And you have Tiffany, who is just organically over.
Yeah.
She, even as a heel, when she says toodles, the crowd pops. They
Toodles.
they don't care that she's being mean. Like they love
Yeah.
her. Nia plays that perfectly to add those cheers of like, come on, Nia, you gonna say
Yeah.
that to Tiffany? Like, get the hell out of here.
Nia is a big, big, big part in setting up the eventual massive face turn for Tiffany. Tiffany is hitting that level of potentially one of the biggest face heel turns of all time for the women. I really think they're setting themselves up for success. It's a little unfortunate that I don't think Nia is going to get like maybe the WrestleMania spot for all the work she's done. This is all, my mind. This is all just fantasy booking in a way. But I foresee a Charlotte Flair returning and maybe getting a Tiffany match at WrestleMania. But Tiffany doesn't get there without Nia. I think that's only the testament to how great Nia's been this year. But as for Women's Wrestler of the Year, who else we got on this list? Who else do you want to talk about?
We've got some very worthy people. Rhea
Xavier
Ripley.
Worthy.
Yeah. Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Roxanne, Bailey. Again, in this top five, she probably slides in at number five. And
Yes.
it is not fully, her fault. It more so plays into what we talked about earlier, where they really just dropped the ball with all the momentum that she had for when she won the title. Who knows? Like if she gets the push that Rhea Ripley has
Mm-hmm.
gotten, if she gets that little bump, maybe she is our winner this year.
Yeah,
Who knows what they do with her? But they didn't. And she deserves to be nominated. She won the Rumble. She won the big one at WrestleMania. She deserves to be in the mix, but she's not the winner.
I agree. I honestly think even sitting here discussing this, there's reason for Bailey to even be six and Tiffany be five on the list. I think those are two very interchangeable names. Bailey's had a great year. It's again the way the cookie crumbles a little bit. There's been alternative storylines that have worked out better. The Nia title run with Tiffany. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe the Bailey title run should have been exactly what it was because it worked out better in the long run. Bailey's a great talent. Unfortunately, not the women's wrestler of the year.
No, because the women's wrestler of the year, in my opinion, is deserving, is maybe not getting talked about as much as she should be,
Mm-hmm.
and is one of the reasons why, if you haven't been watching NXT, you should have been, because the best women's wrestler of the year is Roxanne Perez.
Absolutely. I completely agree. This was one of those categories where we went with Roxanne wins and then we came up with the other names. This was an immediate decision for C2. Congrats, Roxanne, on the first ever C2. Roxanne, though, I think it goes to show. I think it's a testament for her and how good she is. Such a young age. You're NXT champion for a long time now. You're ever running NXT champion during this push of female talent, during a Julia debut, Stephanie, Zaria. You got so much talent down there right now, and their face is Roxanne. It is so easy to take that belt and put it on Julia, put it on Stephanie, put it on somebody else. But they're really working with Roxanne. Roxanne, I think, is one of the best physically women's wrestlers they've ever had. I think she, at the young age she is too, is only gonna get better with time. I like what they're doing with her, though. I don't think her time to go up to the main roster has hit yet. I think she's very well main roster bound, maybe post Mania 41. But I'm very glad they made the decision to keep her down in NXT. Post Mania 40, NXT Women's Roster needed her. There were some injuries. We didn't have this new crop of talent coming in. So keeping Roxanne down there, putting the title on her, in the long run of things, worked out genuinely better than I think they imagined it would have.
We also have to mention the feud with Jordan Grace.
Yes, of course. Yep, absolutely.
This is when you start thinking you're bringing in Jordan Grace, you're having this monumental moment where the TNA Knockouts champion, who was in the Royal Rumble, had this great performance, and she's going to have a one-on-one match. And who do you trust to have that match with? And it was Roxanne Perez,
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so. It was clear from that moment that she would be in contention for the prestigious Twoey of Best Women's Wrestler of the Year, but she only got better. Like the match quality, the stories, the flat out dominance. Like
Yeah,
this is, the face of the NXT women's division. We have said plenty of times, the NXT women's division, it is the best crop of women top to bottom that maybe WWE's ever had
yep,
in one specific division for the women. And she's been the face of that. And yes, right now the main roster has a ton of talent, but top to bottom, there's less of a gap than there was on the main roster. And Roxanne was champ for pretty much all of it.
yeah, absolutely. If you were to group together the Raw, the SmackDown, the NXT Women's rosters, and if they had an overall rating, the NXT Women's
Your
roster,
median.
yeah, they're median. Yeah, the NXT Women's roster is top of the list right now. And I'll give Roxanne a little bit of credit here too, where Roxanne, very much to me, at first was almost like a Bailey. Like this is almost your face for life type character. Such an easy, cheerable baby face. And they made her heel. At first, I was not crazy on it. I didn't know how it was going to go. Roxanne didn't really strike me as the heel. There was no Cora Jade for a while, so I feel like they needed a heel. Yeah, sure. I didn't think it was going to work out, but I'll give Roxanne the credit. She's made this heel run work. I think her eventual face turn is coming at a point. I don't know if she stays heel going into the main roster. I think she is better as a face, but her best year ever was as a heel. So who am I to say? Women's Wrestler of the Year, Roxanne Perez.
Absolutely. And just one more quick thing. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
her potential call up. I talked about Fraxium being in the mix for 2025 Tag Team of the Year. If Roxanne gets this call up and you have all of these fresh stories for her, I mean, pretty much the entire women's roster is a fresh matchup, and
Yep.
there is countless big matches with her. She might be back on this list again in 2025. I would not be surprised in the slightest.
Absolutely. Just literally off the top of my head, Rhea, Liv, Bailey, it's just the list
EO.
is EO. Yeah, the list is endless for Roxanne Perez. And, a woman now coming up to the main roster, there's mid card titles to go for. I would honestly, I would really put my life on the line to say that Roxanne probably holds a mid card title somewhere in the year 2025. Would not surprise me at all. And it's very deserving. Speaking of deserving, we have one more final category to get to for our first ever C2E Awards for C2 Wrestling. This one, Best Men's Wrestler, our Men's Wrestler of the Year. 5 great names, 5 winnable names, if we're being honest here. To list them off, Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, Jey Uso, LA Knight, Damian Priest. And for our 5th name, before I even mention it, I think we're just going to announce this one a little bit differently. This is our winner, our best men's wrestler of the year. Crack the knuckles, stretch the arms a little bit. This is a Gunther Stan account at C2 Wrestling. Our men's wrestler of the year, none other than Gunther, our world heavyweight champion.
This is just hook, line, and sinker. I love Cody. I love all the guys on
Mm-hmm.
this list.
Absolutely. 5 great names.
This was, when I tell you, the biggest, easiest category to call.
Mm-hmm.
If I could start a company tomorrow and I need someone to be my main heel, someone to be that final boss, I guess you could say,
Look no further.
this is the guy. the total package of professional wrestling.
Absolutely. This is your wrestler's wrestler. This really is the most total package in a long time. And I do think there's a little bit of a disconnect between fans and like older wrestling and the older wrestlers and different mentality back then, things like that. But I think it goes to show a lot the amount of respect Gunther gets from a lot of those older wrestlers. The Undertaker, when you got names like him saying he really is like an old school wrestler, Gunther's one of the best they got. I think it goes to show Gunther really is maybe the best in ring promo, everything, best look, presentation, top to bottom, the best thing in not only WWE, but wrestling. Some honorable names on this list, to mention LA Knight. If I'm being honest, probably our number 5 on the list, LA Knight. But he's on that list because he's still over the moon. He's been over the moon for years now, and he put on his best year ever. Won a title, won the United States Championship, has put on his best matches in WWE in just this year of 2024. But when you compare LA Knight to Gunther, man, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. You had said this to me recently. LA Knight could be the guy to take the title off Gunther one day. But we're talking tomato, it's tomatoes between these two guys in a way. Gunther is far and away surpassing LA Knight on this list, in my opinion.
When we look at the year that he's had, yes, Cody won the Rumble and Cody finished his story at Mania 40, and Cody got the win over Gunther. And at the time, I thought it was an absolute mistake. And sitting here today, I still think it's a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Gunther is the guy that he is that end game opponent. He
Yep.
is that guy who finished his Intercontinental title reign at 666 days, the longest
Yep.
reigning Intercontinental champion of all time. I have called for him to be one of the longest reigning heavyweight champions of all time. I don't want him dropping that world title at all.
Yep.
This is like the perfect character, but in wrestling. I saw this on X the other day, and I sent it to you, and I said, "This is known. Why are people acting like this isn't known?"
Yep.
Someone made the tweet that they, as if it was like such a bold thing to say, that wrestling is just better when the babyface is chasing the heel who's the champion. And I sent it, I'm like, yeah, that's wrestling 101. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And there was a crop of people that didn't, which surprised me. And I get, some people have grown up a little later on into wrestling, or they're younger and they may be
Mm-hmm.
catching on. Gunther is that heel, that
Yep.
perfect heel that you have baby face after baby face that you are begging to beat him, and he rips your heart out.
Absolutely. Gunther, man, just like you said, I don't understand people not realizing that the babyface chasing the heel is the better story. The face championship runs are great, don't get me wrong, but they don't usually hold up to the face chasing the title. The Cody title run's been fantastic, I think, but him chasing the title was a whole lot better. The sky is blue, bears shit in the woods. That's pretty obvious to me, but apparently not to the entire wrestling community. Gunther, though, that's your world heavyweight champion. And not only is he your world heavyweight champion, his IC title run culminated at WrestleMania 40 this year, 666 days. So there's a good 4 months where he's your ongoing Intercontinental champion, putting on stellar matches with the likes of Chad Gable, for example. Gunther, man, I didn't really know the route they were going to go with Gunther this year. I honestly wasn't sold on him losing the IC at WrestleMania. I was not totally convinced Sami Zayn was going to win that match. When Sami Zayn did, you can kind of predict, all right, they'll probably go the Gunther title route this year. Imperium breaks up. Ludwig Kaiser's still around. Gunther as a standalone, as a leader of a faction, running this tag team, it just doesn't get better than Gunther. He is exactly that final boss. He's that guy that only takes a minimal amount of losses, because when he does, it has to have importance to it. Gunther, I think, is comparable to Stone Cold walking out because he didn't want to go down to Brock Lesnar in a qualifying King of the Ring match. Gunther is not the guy you have get pinned by Carlito on Raw. I don't know. Gunther's the guy that you have lose big time matches with big time stakes to big time competitors. There's only a few names that could take this title off Gunther, and that's for good reasons.
He only got pinned, what, twice this year?
Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. And I
He's
mean,
only been
Cody,
pinned like 5 times in the last
yeah,
3 years. Yeah.
Cody's been pinned more than Gunther
Gunther.
this year.
Yep.
Cody pinned by Drew, pinned by Solo,
The
pinned by
Rock.
The Rock, and I think there was someone else. Maybe there isn't, but that's already more than Gunther.
Still more. Yeah.
Yeah. This is if Gunther didn't drop the title and held the world title for 666 days, I would say give him 666 more.
Yeah.
I like this is the I know I've said he's the total package, but this is when I have as a little kid a figure fed, like this is the champion that just keeps on winning, just keeps on winning. And
Yep.
yes, he doesn't have the 15-time title reign, but sometimes it's the quality, not the quantity. And that's
Absolutely.
Gunther's like that is his MO. He is quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Look at his title runs. UK champion, Intercontinental champion, World Heavyweight champion. He's held a title more than he hasn't in his WWE career. And it's for a reason. It's a crazy tenure for a guy like Gunther, too. Debuting in NXT UK, a branch of a division in a way. And he debuts as Walter, undergoes, a name change. He comes up during a weird time in wrestling, a change of regimes, and he falls under the tutelage, it seems, of Triple H, more Triple H guy perhaps, because that rock has been strapped to him, and it rightfully so has been. He is your guy that really doesn't need 10 title runs. I just said in this episode, in this video, that I do like that. I like when wrestlers have accolades, when you can look back and they're 3, 4, 5 times champions. I'd rather look back at a guy like Gunther and him have minimal title reigns, but the importance behind them, the length of them, who he beat heads on a spike, as we say. He's already listed a bunch of people that he beat down for this world heavyweight title, and there's more to come. Who knows what we're getting next?
I think what I'm most excited for with Gunther, two things. I'm most excited for John Cena getting the opportunity and him ripping that away from him and ripping the hearts of all the C Nation. As much as I love Cena, where everyone thinks Cena's going to get number 17 and Gunther does not let it happen. Then I am also looking forward to eventually that story that we talked about before. Gunther is a guy who likes to right his wrongs. He is a
Mm,
guy who is a perfectionist. Even if he wins, he wants to win in certain ways where it feels there's no doubt.
absolutely.
And eventually, we will get that rematch of Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, where Gunther will right that wrong of his loss that sent him in a tailspin for a few months.
Yeah,
And he has now
absolutely.
kind of righted the ship. That story, I am hook, line, and sinker for. I don't think it comes in 2025. Maybe it's a 2026 story.
Mm-hmm.
But if you told me that story happens in 2026 and Gunther still hasn't lost the title, I'm loving life.
Love and life. Gunther is a guy that likes to right his wrongs. He beat Orton in Saudi Arabia, not clean. Gave him the title shot at Bash in Berlin. Right that wrong is what Gunther did. It really is crazy to see a wrestler like Gunther in the WWE during this insane run of WWE. There really is such a crazy crop of talent, and Gunther's at the top of the list. He's one of the guys that's really making wrestling as good as it is right now. And there's so much to come. You just mentioned Gunther demolishing John Cena, which I hope to see so much. If John Cena faces Gunther for his 17th world title, and listen, we love John Cena here. I ain't got nothing wrong with John Cena. Big John Cena fan. But you're putting Gunther over John Cena. I'm sorry. You're taking that loss. When John Cena's up top getting power bombed by Gunther and we're in the stands just cheering and everyone's looking at us, it's because we're a Gunther stand account. There's a lot to come. I'm really looking forward to a potential. It's been pitched. It's been talked about even on TV. We might get that CM Punk Gunther world title match. With the route they're going for WrestleMania, Cody Rhodes had said, expect the unexpected, essentially. We might get Punk Gunther, man. I'm not saying no to that yet. I really think that could be a route they go.
I would be absolutely down for that. I am down for anything CM Punk, anything Gunther, anything of the combination. of the two. But that is going to wrap up our first ever Twoeys,
Yep.
the best WWE Wrestling Award show out there. I don't care. You name the platform. This is, let me see their Bret Hart Hater of the Year award, their Ssss'Change It of the Year award. Let me see them dressed up to the nine, sweating bullets under a ring light.
Sweating bullets right now. Yeah.
Let me see it. I bet you can't find it because it's right here on C2 Wrestling. So we have a lot more coming after this. We have the Monday Night Raw stream
Mhm.
for their debut on Netflix. We will be live right here on YouTube. We have more live streams for the Royal Rumble, big shows, PLEs we will be live for. Exactly. We have post show reactions, videos that we've been dropping from NXT call ups to transfers to bold predictions to wish lists, you name it. You've got it right here. Plenty to come in the future. Some new stuff as well. Maybe we crack open a vault and turn on an Xbox. Hint, hint on a few
Who
things.
knows what's to come?
Who knows? But you got to be subscribed and you got to have notifications turned on.
Absolutely. This has been a blast. Our first ever C2 TUI Awards. And I'll tell you what, I mentioned already in this video again, we're only 5, 6 months into this. We did this halfway into the year. So 2025, that's our first full year of C2. You get to come sit down with us, talk shop with us, discuss wrestling for the entire year. Hear our opinions from January 1st, day one, as WWE would call it, all the way till the new year. We got a full year coming ahead. As we wrap this up, I untie my tie. It's getting hot in here. Got to untuck my shirt a little bit, get the suit off. But my name is Snowden, CTD.
We will
I'm
catch
out
you
of here. That's
guys
C2
next
Wrestling.
time. See you, buddy.